Hey, this is James, the founder of Sweetfish Media. If you've listened to B2B Growth for a while, you probably have an idea of what we're passionate about. Loving people really well, a constant pursuit of learning, and inspiring people to own their careers. With all the craziness happening with this virus, we are incredibly fortunate to be in the business of podcasting. So many B2B brands are looking for alternatives to their in-person events that are being canceled, and our business is growing as a result. Please don't mishear me on this because I'm not saying this to brag. It is heartbreaking, the economic impact this is having on so many businesses. But being in the business of podcasting, the demand for what we do has increased. And because of that, we're looking to hire really talented people to help us serve that demand. So if you like what we're all about at Sweetfish and you're looking for a great career opportunity, hit us up. There's a link in the show notes where you can apply today. I'm really looking forward to meeting you.
Welcome back to B2B Growth. I'm Logan Lyles with Sweetfish Media. Today is another episode in our Behind the Curtain series. As usual, in this series, I'm joined by my good buddy, James Carbary. James, how you doing today, man?
I am doing well, and I am pumped because we are going to be talking about something that we just did. Actually, as we're recording this, we just did this a few days ago. We did our very first customer mastermind, which is our version of a virtual customer event. And we're going to be talking in this episode about why we decided to do it, how we did it. We pulled it off relatively quickly. I mean, within, I think, a week of having the idea.
Pretty darn close.
We had the email sent and had all the kind of the tech set up to be able to do it. And it turned out really well. I was really excited about how it all came out. So we're going to be talking about that in this episode, and hopefully it's a lot of value for you guys.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think, just in general, we talk about, one of our core values is love people well. And a lot of that is our team and our customers. And so we're big believers in building stronger relationships with your team, with your customers. We just did the episode about, turning prospects into friends, right? Yeah. And I think part of why we wanted to do that was just leaning into that core value, but also kind of speak to what led us up to why we wanted to do this right now. Obviously, the decision for a virtual event was made for us, but let's talk about that, and then we'll dive into the how we pulled it off very quickly and how we're planning on using it. And we'll get into some of that others can replicate.
Yeah, so we did one of these in person last year in Orlando. So we had, I think, 3 or 4 clients fly into Orlando, and we just did a 2-day deep dive on B2B podcasting, best practices, how to host interviews, how to prep for interviews, all the content planned. We had some of the folks that were local here in Orlando that were our customers or friends of ours came into. So I think we had 7, 8, 9 folks that were kind of in the living room talking through this. We rented a house in Orlando and really, really cool environment. And coming out of that, I just thought, man, that was incredible. But it was also a gargantuan task to undertake. I mean, it's 2 or 3 days figuring out food and housing and airfare and just the timing of all of it. So when all of this started happening and we were kind of leaning toward doing it in person and then, or another one in person, but I wasn't super excited about doing that because of all of the work that went in, but was also bummed because I knew how much fun the last one was. So when all this craziness started happening, we were just like, man, what if we did it virtually? And what if we stayed consistent with it and did it once a month? So we just did this first one, and within, like I said earlier, I think within like a week, put up a Google form, took all the customer information out of our email marketing tool. We use Drip right now. We're about to switch over to Infusionsoft, and we sent out an email to all of our customers and basically said, hey, we're doing this event. Fill out this quick little form if you want to be a part of it. And it was really cool. The insights that we got from that forum, we just had them give us our name and their email, and then we let them know what the topic was going to be. But we said, hey, if there's a topic that you want to cover in the future, let us know here. So that's going to give us insight on what are our customers actually wanting to learn more about. And maybe we know a thing or two about it, maybe we don't. But I just thought, man, especially with all this stuff going on, but even with coronavirus not happening, you always hear people saying, it's the company that's closest to their customers that wins. And I had just felt as the founder that I was getting increasingly more disconnected from our customers. You run sales, Isabel and Bill are running customer experience and operations. Our producers are kind of the face of our business to our customers. And because I'm not doing a lot of B2B growth interviews, I started getting farther and farther away from our customers. And I thought that this would be a really cool way for me to inject myself back into relationship with our customers, add value by the things that we're learning across the 70 or 80 shows that we're producing. And also, it would be a way for us to create evergreen content that can be used for new customers. So for the customers that we get 6 months from now, this video that we just recorded on how to plan episode topics that your audiences actually want to hear, well, that was super helpful this week when we recorded it for our customers, but it's also going to be helpful 6 months from now, whenever a new customer comes on board and we show them the bank of, the 6 customer masterminds that we've done up until that point. That's going to be valuable content for somebody that's just getting into podcasting and getting started. Yeah. So lots of different reasons why we did it. And I'm really glad that we did.
Yeah, absolutely. To kind of, speak to the how and, compare that to the in-person mastermind group. I mean, the benefit last year, besides getting together and being able to play mini golf and build relationships with customers, the donuts were definitely high up there. But since we did it virtually this time, I couldn't burn the bacon like I did last March. So there's pros and cons is what we're saying. But just like to give folks a little bit of peek behind the curtain, like you and I, James, talk a lot about how, setting up a lot of technical stuff and making sure that the operations and the different tools kind of connect together is not something that brings you a ton of joy, to put it lightly, right?
To put it lightly. Understatement of the century. It makes me want to pull what little hair I have left out.
The extrovert, the people person who just I just want to have conversations with people and move it forward. And also, if you've been following along with us for a while, obviously podcasting is our primary medium. We have never done a lot of webinars. We've never done a webinar. We've done, 2 big virtual events that were a huge undertaking. And so part of this was in our mind, as you and I were talking about, how are we going to pull this off? Is it going to take a lot? All these reasons why are good, but maybe there's some reasons why not. And as you said, I think encouragement for folks that are maybe a smaller team, or maybe, someone else needs to pull this together quickly that doesn't have the full resources of their team that does run their webinars or typical virtual events. Google Form, some Zapier integrations, and a Zoom account is literally all that we did. And then pulling contacts from our database, whatever CRM or marketing automation tool you use. It can be easier than you think to pull off these sort of small virtual events, just like we see some folks doing with, happy hours where you dress from the waist up right now and all that good stuff.
One thing, Logan, on one thing that I learned through this process. So we use Zoom to do the call. So I just got to, I don't even have a Zoom account because I usually use Google Hangouts, but I got a $15 Zoom account and I sent the email using Drip. And then there was a Zapier integration. And so you can set up a Zapier integration. It's between a calendar appointment. So we just created a calendar appointment for when the customer mastermind was going to be. And then you can automatically, you can trigger a Google Forms submission. So whenever someone enters their information on a Google form, that you can have a Zapier integration that connects that form submission to being invited to the calendar invitation. And that's something that I learned from Zach Obrant over at Scribe, because they recently did this for one of their customers. We're a customer of theirs. They're the ones that helped get that book, Content-Based Networking, written. And so I saw that they did it. So I reached out and I was like, hey, how did you do that? And so that Zapier integration was super helpful. And for a lot of people listening to this might be like, duh, of course, that's how you would do that. But I had no clue. And it was super helpful. They just filled out the Google form and then automatically got an invite to the calendar event. And then we just notified everyone leading up to the event. So an hour before the event started, we just sent an email to everybody that had RSVP'd to the event and said, hey, here's the Zoom link. If you don't see it in the calendar invite, excited to see you in an hour. And we ended up having a really good turnout.
Yeah. The other thing that I think you did really well, because you're not going to give yourself a pat on the back here, but one thing that I know about you is you are just an amazing copywriter, especially with subject lines. We talked before about how you incorporated that subject line of "I wanted to punch a raccoon" or "punching a raccoon," right?
Yeah.
Around the book launch. In this one, the subject line, so everyone knows, was "I screwed up," and telling the story about like how great it was to do a customer mastermind in person last year, and we haven't done one since. But literally, we had people on the team who saw that email go out, and I think it was Kelsey, our creative director, was like, opened it right away, like, "Oh wait, what is James apologizing for?" Getting ready to tell you, like, no big deal or whatever. Like, think through those sorts of things, because everybody's moving virtual events and doing them in some form or fashion, whether it's a big event like Adobe Summit going virtual or something like that, or these sort of small intimate groups. Still, you got to think about how do you communicate that, even with your current customer base where you're going to have a high open rate, high reply rate, that sort of stuff. You still want to think about that copy so that you still increase that. Maybe it's a 30% open or reply rate and moving that to 45 or whatever the case is. So just an example there for folks to think about.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I thought being thoughtful with your copy is so important. I mean, I included a picture of me, you, and Ryan at the event with those massive donuts that we got at the event. And, just did some, circling of, because you looked like you were just waking up. Ryan looked way too excited. And then, and obviously circled donuts. I was like, this was pure glory or something like that. So just being like, not feeling like you have to be so stuffy in your communication. I don't know how much of a role that played in folks wanting to be on this mastermind call that we did, but I've certainly got to believe it played some part.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And then, you talked a little bit about how we structured it. We prepared some content. We just lined out, quickly what I was going to cover, what you were going to cover, and all that sort of stuff. And then I think it's worth spending a little bit of time talking about how you can make sure that you repurpose this. We recorded it, obviously, so that anyone who signed up could go back to it. Also, we kind of got very technical on SEO research and planning. And so we knew that we threw a lot of stuff at people in an hour. So we wanted to make sure they could go back to it. So we sent them the recording right afterwards, which, a lot of people have baked into their webinar process. But if you're doing these sort of things on the fly or on the side of kind of your normal MO with webinars or virtual events, it just might not be something that's top of mind for you. The other thing that I'm excited about is, like you said, that as we start to build this library, we now have evergreen content that during the sales process, I can say, hey, we host a monthly mastermind class for our customers. Now, maybe you're going to become a customer next month, but we've done 8 of these. Once you become a customer, you have access to not only your producer and our team, which obviously I'm gonna talk up, but you benefit from being a part of this community and the collective knowledge. And I think that demonstrates your expertise. It demonstrates your willingness to add value in a lot of ways. And it up levels the value of your offering, because it's not just the service that you're providing, it's the knowledge, it's the ecosystem that they get to join. Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, and it's the community, right? I mean, like, so for us, for example, so we're working with all these, there are a lot of mid-market B2B tech companies, a lot of SaaS companies that are all doing podcasting, and we're learning from each other. So it's not just the content that you and I are sharing. For example, on this call, we've got somebody that we produce Sales Hackers podcast. We produce Outreaches podcast, Sales Engagement podcast, and then we also produce the Sales Hacker podcast. And the guy from Sales Hacker that, Colin, he runs marketing over there at Sales Hacker. He was on the call. And
great dude. We love Colin.
Great.
If you're listening to this, Colin.
Yeah, we love
Go
Colin.
ahead.
But he was able to jump in as, Sales Hacker being, a very well-known entity, media property in the B2B sales space. And he was able to share some insights on what they're doing and how they got to where they are, what their process is. So I just think, in addition to the collective knowledge, it's the community, right? And being able to now, if one of our customers didn't know who Colin was, but he's on that call with Colin, we had everybody connect with each other on LinkedIn, kind of as we were waiting for everybody to show up to the Zoom call. Just, hey, pop your LinkedIn URL into the chat. And then from there, everybody got connected. So now we're forging these relationships. So even if you don't learn something from somebody on that call, you can reach back out to them or you can see content that they write, down the road. So anyway, the community element was super exciting as well.
It comes back to content-based networking, baby. I mean, we talk so much about like offer a content collaboration with people that you want to know. Don't forget about content collaboration to deepen the relationships, to be that connector. There was an interview you did so far back in the B2B growth feed about being a super connector. And one of the things that always stood out to me about that episode with the author that you were interviewing was that when you connect people, there's value in the relationship, even if you're not delivering the value, right? And so, there was an example of another customer who was on that call who's actually moving on to a new organization. And he was really intrigued about how we manage the writing process for the SEO-focused blog posts that accompany the podcast episodes. And so he wanted to follow up with a member of our team. I started a group text real quick and just said, hey, he'd like to ask a few follow-up questions. Can you guys take it from here? And made that connection to another member of our team. But that could also happen between two customers, them connecting on LinkedIn. I definitely think if you're doing this sort of thing, you should do like James just said, have everybody drop their LinkedIn profile into the chat and encourage people to connect. Great way to make it easy for that sense of community, because you kind of assume that it might happen, but if you can do some things to remove the barriers and ease the friction, then you're going to be that super connector, man.
One of the things that I saw Sales Hacker do on a webinar that I was a guest on a few weeks prior was they have everybody put the city that they're in. And so it was cool because we were, you could see like, oh, there's 3 other people from Austin. And it's just a way to get people engaged in the chat. And also, helping make some offline connections as well. And so obviously I knew nobody was going to be trying to meet up anytime soon. So instead of doing city names, we decided to go with LinkedIn URLs. I think that's going to be super helpful. One of the guys from our team that's leading this effort for us was able to connect with one of our customers who reached out to him on LinkedIn shortly after the call. So it's just really cool. There's lots of upside to organizing these customer events. And if anyone listening to this has any questions about how we did it, want more explanation on why we did it, the structure, format, anything like that, reach out to Logan or I on LinkedIn. We'd be happy to walk through kind of in more detail how we pulled this thing off.
Yep, absolutely. Feel free to email or connect with us on LinkedIn. I'm Logan at sweetfishmedia.com. James is James at sweetfishmedia.com. Happy to answer any questions or speak to anything else tactically that we were able to pull off. James was the technical mastermind, even though he hates the technical side of things. But we had a lot of fun too. And we just want to encourage people, get your customers together virtually. There's so many benefits that come with it. And hopefully you can take some of these little things that we were able to implement fairly quickly and use them in your own scenario. So as always, thank you so much for listening.
I hate it when podcasts incessantly ask their listeners for reviews, but I get why they do it, because reviews are enormously helpful when you're trying to grow a podcast audience. So here's what we decided to do. If you leave a review for B2B Growth in Apple Podcasts and email me a screenshot of the review to james at sweetfishmedia.com, I'll send you a signed copy of my new book, Content-Based Networking, How to Instantly Connect with Anyone You Want to Know. We get a review, you get a free book. We both win.